4 years ago, in a special show about movie cliches we called They'll Do It Every Time, Roger and I complained that cars in chase scenes invariably crash into fruit carts. In response to that show came this scene that concluded Police Academy 6. Check out the names on the awning of the cart. And what a relief. They don't knock it over. In that spirit, we now present They'll Do It Every Time Part 2. More movie cliches that we hope to eradicate. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Let's get right to the action with another cliche involving car and truck crashes, and that is that large panes of glass are made to be broken. People in Hollywood think you love seeing motor vehicles smash into glass, especially, of course, in slow motion. And so whenever a car is racing anywhere, there's somehow a pane of glass right in the way. Now, as you watch this collection of clips, ask yourself this question. Why is that piece of glass in the scene?
The first time I saw that stuff, I went, wow, maybe. But now I really look at those scenes as acts of desperation, and we often get the shot from two different angles. We saw it there. Go through one time, cut, go through it again. Go from a different side. Then you get continuity errors, too. One time I saw one of those cars going through and it was filling up the opening of the glass. The next time, when it came through from this side, the car was small and the glass hole was much bigger. I think it's time to retire this cliche, don't you think? Or at least have a car screech right up to the front of a glass pane.
And then stop. And the two guys holding the pane say something. Our next category is one that's sort of painful to me because I love classic cars, old cars. And I know that almost every time I see one in a movie, somebody's baby, he's out there with the Simon eyes waxing it. Sooner or later, that car is going to be smashed to smithereens. Look at some of these tragic cinematic auto accidents. In Coupe de Ville, the Cadillac gets a coup de grace. In Risky Business, is that any way to treat a Porsche? Ferris Bueller's Day Off was an exercise in how many ways to mistreat a beautiful automobile.
I can't wait to see the look on the bastard's face.
More than a dozen 1958 Plymouths were destroyed while they were making Christine. And look at this beautiful Woody station wagon get mashed beyond recognition in Loose Cannon.
No, not the other side of my car!
Run 89.271. We're traveling at hyperphase velocity for planet Kirillon.
That bothers me during those scenes is there are only a finite number of great old cars in existence, and the movies are chewing them up week after week. A Thunderbird went off the edge in Thelma and Louise just last summer.
Oh, my heart goes out. We can afford that. You know, they often do use dummy cars, Roger, and they frequently...
And they often don't, too.
Okay. Coming up next, whenever the characters in a movie go into a bar, you can absolutely count on one thing, and it's not that they'll have drinks.
And they'll do it every time, Part 2, a program where Gene and I look at some of the absolutely predictable things that happen in the movies. For example, a new buddy movie comes out about once a month, and every one of them has one absolutely obligatory scene in which the buddies vow that they want nothing to do with one another.
No, I want to get something straight in your head. We are not pals. We're not getting married. We're not going to take long night walks together, okay? And don't call me Sergeant.
That's right. There's no way they can work with one another in Alienation. Or in Lethal Weapon, where Danny Glover wants nothing to do with Mel Gibson's Madman.
Guess what? What? I don't want to work with you. Hey, don't. Ain't got no choice.
Or in The Enforcer, where the veteran doesn't trust the woman.
Oh, you know, Inspector Moore.
Or in The Hard Way, where the veteran doesn't trust the Hollywood actor.
I don't want you inside. Do you understand?
Or in New Jack City, where the veteran doesn't trust the crazy guy.
Freddie here goes with you.
This big biscuit head looking...
Hey, listen up, Scotty.
Or in Red Heat, where Jim Belushi doesn't trust Arnold Schwarzenegger.
How come I get all the jobs?
Yeah, come with me. Yes.
Well, you heard I just got my orders.
Or in K-9, where Belushi doesn't even trust a dog.
No, you got a lot of dogs over there. Why can't I have one of those? And when you do things outside the rules, you take what you can get. Now, I want...
If we had time, we'd show you the scenes that always follow those setup scenes, and that's the scene where someone in authority tells the new partners they're absolutely ordered to work together. And, of course, there's always the scene where the hero tells the new guy to stay out of his way, and later on, of course, there's always the scene where he says, you're not such a bad guy after all.
Well, he saved his life.
That's right, usually does. Using this handy formula, the writer of a buddy movie has a third of his screenplay already finished for him. All he has to do is just plug in a bad guy and a chase scene, and you've got the whole film.
Okay, now once those buddy teams are together in a movie, there's another cliche they almost always perform. They'll do it every time. They'll go into a bar, not to drink or socialize or play stupid video games, but to, you know what they do.
Well, this is a public bar. I can have a drink here again.
Hey, look, violence ain't the way. And besides, I want to do it.
For the hearty Hi-Yo Silver rides the Lone Ranger with his faithful Indian companion, Tonto.
Yes, bars in the movies are for fighting, not for drinking. Now, what to do to break this cliche? I want to see a character in a bar break a beer bottle to use as a weapon, and in the process, cut themselves while their adversary walks out of the saloon with a smile on his or her face. Something like that is needed right now.
When we come back, a fairly technical category called continuity errors, in which one shot doesn't quite match the next one.
Come on, hit him.
Cliches. Last time we did the show, we included some of our favorite continuity errors. Here's the latest batch.
Yeah.
In The King of Comedy, Martin Scorsese proves he can make continuity errors, too. Look at the handkerchief wrapped around Robert De Niro's bleeding hand. Now you see it, now you don't. Now you see it again.
I walked out of that show like I was in a dream, you know?
From the sublime to the ridiculous, from Scorsese to Seagal. In Marked for Death, watch this chase scene closely. We're supposed to be in Chicago, but as we start out this chase, there are mountains in Illinois. Later, we see palm trees downtown. Roger and I love Chicago, but our city is as flat as a pancake and contains as many palm trees as a pancake, too. And here's a double bill of Arnold Schwarzenegger goofs. In Twins, he and Danny DeVito don't even look alike. No, just kidding. Actually, you should be looking at the disappearing beer bottle behind them in this bathroom scene.
Whoa. Oh! Come on, hit him. What? Hit him.
Oh. And in the original Terminator, Arnold takes a chase in a stolen police car. At first, the logo on the car reads, to care and to protect. At the end of the chase, it says, dedicated to serve. And that was the same front left door. I guess out in California, they have that new franchise Jiffy label. And you know, this is a great time with continuity errors. This is when you really want to be able to rent these movies on home videotape. And that's how we find these things, is people can stop them down and catch the little mistakes.
You know, it's gotten to the point where I've read and seen so many things about continuity errors that every time somebody starts drinking something or smoking a cigarette in the movie, I'm just zeroed right in to see the level of that drink or how far down that cigarette has been puffed. Here's yet another dependable movie cliche, which we could call the Carrie syndrome, after the movie Carrie, in which, as you will recall, a character was dead and buried and still wasn't dead. In fact, in horror movies, thrillers, and mysteries, you can almost always count on one thing. When the bad guy is killed and is dead and is out of the picture and is kaput, there will inevitably be a scene where he turns out to still be alive. Remember how the maniac made his comeback in Halloween? And how Alexander Goodenough was left hanging in Die Hard only to come back at the end for one last shot. And Glenn Close only looked like she was drowned in Fatal Attraction. And Julia Roberts thought her evil husband was finally dead and sleeping with the enemy, but she was wrong. And, of course, Misery was based on a Stephen King novel where one death is rarely enough for any character. In a way, I kind of enjoy the scenes where the dead monster attacks again. I absolutely know what's on the way. I know all the advanced signs. The hero sighs with relief. Everything is quiet. And then suddenly, in the background, the monster jumps up again, or the killer, whoever it is, and I'm waiting for it, and so when I'm surprised anyway, I give the director points. For example, I was very surprised in Fatal Attraction when Glenn Close jumped up out of that bathtub. I thought it was too good of a movie for a scene like that, so I get you every time.
And I thought that Sleeping with the Enemy, as many problems it had, was too good of a movie for that, too. I think that one I lost points for the director on that picture. It's been 15 years since Carrie. The cliche could be safely retired now. I think everyone in the audience knows when that's happening. And
wouldn't you be kind of disappointed if somebody was killed and they were just plain dead?
Well, maybe you could just get a twitch.
They're going to make Alien 3. Do you think it's going to happen in Alien 3?
You may be right. Coming up next, have you ever actually seen anybody jump from one rooftop to another? Well, it happens in the movies several times a day. They'll do it every time, part 2. Our next category is a favorite of mine. We're calling it, How Can They Afford That Apartment? Check out newspaper reporter Lois Lane's penthouse pad in Superman. My way of figuring is that Lois, at 50 grand a year, say, takes home about $2,500 a month, which would cover the rent on the balcony alone. Nice place.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
How about an even fancier Manhattan penthouse at an even lower salary? Patricia Charbonneau was an assistant DA in Shakedown, and she should probably be prosecuted for real estate fraud. Look at this terrace. In Quicksilver, Kevin Bacon has lost all of his and his parents' money gambling in commodity futures. But while working as a bicycle messenger, he can handle the tariff on this amazing loft space.
What happened to all of it?
To all what?
All that money.
Nothing happened to it. The money's still there. It just belongs to somebody else now.
And one more example of glamorous New York on only $5 a day. Look at the view out of Swoozie Kurtz's window in Bright Lights Big City. She's a researcher at a magazine. Maybe she's taking home $300 a week.
All her dreams are coming true. Not true of mine.
And TV reporters do make a good buck, but check out this pad in Year of the Dragon.
This is some place. Hey,
I know you got your ethics. I respect that. But listen, you know, you got a great human interest story in Joey Tire. Kid from the slums of Kowloon comes over here, works his way up, marries the boss's daughter, maybe knocks off the boss, becomes the boss. I mean, that's the American dream.
Just once, I'd like to see somebody in a movie like that ask a character like her, how do you afford this place? And she says, my parents are loaded, or I've got a great broker. Something.
And you know, they don't.
It never happens.
They never spend all of their money on rent either, because generally speaking, they're dressed in an unending succession of designer gowns costing from $1,000 to $10,000 a piece.
I know the movies are supposed to be glamorous, but they carry it too far.
Our next category could almost be a new Olympics event called championship roof jumping. In real life, your average cop is not exactly a world-class broad jumper, and your average criminal is not any better. But in the movies, they think nothing of jumping enormous distances from one building to another, even when a miscalculation could cause them to plunge hundreds of feet to their death.
I gotta take a couple steps.
My God! He makes it! We can go back. Let's go. You ain't care about the future like I do. Got myself a little fantasy.
So K9 makes our list twice, and of course they always use a wide-angle lens to make it look like they're jumping even further than they are, or jumping down such a great distance that of course they would break their legs or their ankles, but it never happens. In fact, at the end of those chases, nobody is ever out of breath. In fact, nobody is ever out of breath for more than a second or two at the end of any foot chase in the movies. They may run for 10 minutes all over San Francisco, straight up hills, and even though in real life they'd be gasping for air and soaked with sweat, in the movies, they don't even breathe deeply. The real story at the end of a movie chase scene isn't that the bad guy got caught, it's that nobody had a heart attack.
So what we're calling for are some broken legs when they land, or for some at least heavy breathing.
Yeah, at the end of the next scene, the guy can't talk.
Okay, when we return, one final kick at movie cliches, and I mean that literally. Cliches, one of the cheapest laughs in the movies for the past 20 years has been the kick, the punch, the bullet, the squeeze, or the knee to the groin. And it always gets a big laugh from a guy who I wouldn't want to be seated next to or in front of in a movie theater. People who like these scenes ought to be force-fed them by watching this montage over and over again. For you, however, just once.
No, not yet. Not until me and Howie get the rules straightened out.
Rules? In a knife fight? No rules.
Well, if there ain't gonna be any rules, let's get the fight started.
I love you. I really love you.
You are the coward!
You see, I'm a master of hand-to-hand combat.
Oh. Well.
I'm gonna tell you this much.
Yes, K9 again for the big trifecta. K9 is the film to rent on videotape if you want a short course in movie cliches. But I really want to know, why is this scene still funny for some people, the shot to the groin?
You know, probably a professor of psychology or sexology could write a whole paper on why it is that it's the male area that's so funny, and we would all, I think, be appalled if the concomitant scene were done with a woman.
Good point. That's it for this special edition of Siskel and Ebert. We'll be back next week to review new movies, and until then, our cliche tagging line, the balcony is closed.
It's America's favorite jelly bean, Jelly Belly. Now appearing at theaters and video stores with good taste. Jelly Belly beans. Try them. You'll love them. For the man who's good at making a woman feel great, Pierre Cardin, Man's Cologne. For that special time in your child's life, bring home Walt Disney cartoon classics. Disney videos for your child's magic years. Exclamation, the fragrance that makes a statement without saying a word. Punctuate the air with wit and style. Exclamation, a now kind of fragrance from Coty.